Hi, Sally.
Oh, hola, hola.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Ah, excelente.
Bien.
Oh, here's my video, starting video.
There we go.
Okay.
Hola. I forget that I have this set up as a webinar and it works a little bit differently
Oh, okay.
than how I normally do it. I need to change that because I don't like the way that works.
I've never used a webinar. I've only used Zoom.
Well, this is a webinar. It's just on my end of things, it works differently than like a regular.
Oh, I see.
I have to promote you to a panelist and allow you to talk.
I see. Okay.
Anyway, we're all here now.
Yeah, sí.
¿Cómo estás, Sally?
Oh, muy bien, muy bien.
Sí.
Sí, la temperatura en Minneapolis hoy es aproximadamente 82. Y entonces para mí es perfecto.
Sí.
Sí, me gusta mucho.
Igual aquí en Denver.
¿En Denver?
Sí. Sí, la semana pasada hacía mucho, pero mucho calor. Subió hasta casi 100 grados todos los días. Hasta lunes también. Y el martes estaba muy nublado ayer. Estaba muy nublado, empezó a llover y bajó la temperatura como 20 grados. Y ayer y hoy casi son días iguales, 80 y pico grados, está nublado, está lloviendo un poco y sí, es una pausa, un buen break, una buena pausa del calor.
Sí, es más bueno en las montañas.
Sí, el domingo subimos a Breckenridge y Leadville para escapar un poco del calor, porque fue demasiado aquí en Denver.
El fin de semana próximo?
No, el fin de semana pasado.
Sí.
El domingo pasado fuimos.
Tengo una condominium en Breckenridge.
¿Verdad?
Sí. Yo compré en 2000.
Ok.
Hace muchos años. Sí. Y cuando la pandemia
¿Comenzó?
pasó.
Comenzó.
Sí. Necesité cerrado. Usualmente yo alquilo. Lo alquilo. Sí. Pero en el fin de marzo, Summit County requiere que
¿cómo es? Requirió
que todas las short-term rentals cerraron.
Sí, aquí es donde tiene que usar el subjuntivo.
Subjuntivo.
Sí, requirió que todos los
Dueños.
Los dueños de las propiedades cerraron su alquiler.
Sí, cerraron.
Dejaron de alquilar sus propiedades.
Sí. Pero ahora hay muchas personas que Quiere? Or
¿Quieren?
is this subjunctive
No,
too?
no.
Quiere? Sí, quieren.
See,
Quieren.
don't start thinking that everything is subjunctive. Just because you're starting to get into it, remember everything else is normal.
Okay, but it feels like it. My gosh, there are so many times that it's required. But anyway.
The subjunctive, well, just a real quick, it's usually going to be the second clause of a sentence. So what you're saying right now, they want, a lot of people want, that's the first clause. So that's never going to take the subjunctive there.
Okay, sí. Muchas personas quieren viajar de las montañas.
A las montañas.
A las montañas, sí. Así que mi condominio es lleno.
Está lleno, sí.
Lleno durante julio y medio de agosto.
Agosto, muy bien.
Agosto,
sí,
sí.
Yo ahora mismo por la mañana estaba buscando algo en las montañas para alquilar.
Oh.
Sí, porque tengo mis padrinos me dijeron que tienen un lugar alquilado en las montañas este fin de semana y bueno, estaba buscando, pero todo está lleno.
Sí, sí.
Todo está lleno.
Sí. Sí, y entiendo que hay muchas personas en Breckenridge, pero los casos de COVID-19 no son más.
Por el momento.
Por el momento, sí.
Quizás. Ya subió de nuevo aquí en Denver.
Sí, sí. Y yo escuché que en Denver los bares y los restaurantes ahora no permiten muchas personas el dentro.
Sí, no sé, eso siempre ha sido desde abrir de nuevo, fueron mandados a limitar la capacidad a 50%.
50.
Y los bares ya cerraron de nuevo.
No personas nada.
Los bares ya tuvieron que cerrar de nuevo, sí. Porque, bueno, yo no entiendo esto, porque toda la idea es con distancia social, pues, ¿qué es un bar? Es un lugar para socializarse.
Sí, sí.
Que para mí fue una sorpresa. Yo no oí la noticia que abrieron de nuevo, pero oí la noticia que estaban mandando discotecas y bares de cerrar de nuevo. Y me pregunto yo, ¿pero por qué abrieron de nuevo? Porque un bar donde hay muchas personas tomando alcohol, ¿no es seguro? ¿Una discoteca para ir a bailar?
Sí, y abrazos, buscar.
Claro, ¿no? ¿Quién tomó la decisión de abrir las discotecas y bares de nuevo? No entiendo esto para nada. No, es una locura. La gente no... Es difícil lo que estamos viviendo.
Sí.
Pero para mí hay cosas mucho más importantes que dinero.
Exactamente.
Yo sin pena cerré con mucha pena, no fue una decisión, pero cerré la escuela, decidí ni voy a intentar dar clases en persona porque yo estoy escuchando lo que dice la comunidad científica.
Sí.
Y la
el médico
científica no está cambiando su opinión. Este es un virus muy peligroso que es muy probable que va a explotar de nuevo y es seguro. Lo mejor que uno puede hacer es quedarse en casa y eso es lo que yo estoy escuchando. Y
Sí.
yo duermo tranquilo por la noche porque no tengo ninguna duda de que mis acciones han sido las mejores acciones posibles en este. Hay personas que se han quejado mucho, he perdido muchos alumnos, ahora estaba revisando las cuentas, solo quedo con como 100 alumnos, tenía 300 alumnos y ahora quedo con 100 alumnos, pero bueno, si están enojados conmigo por cerrar mi escuela no es mi problema, es su problema porque yo estoy haciendo lo que tengo que hacer para mí y para mi familia.
Sí, sí, es
Y
verdad.
realmente, mira, nosotros estamos aquí en línea, no hay necesidad de hacer esto en persona.
Ah, estoy de acuerdo, estoy de acuerdo. Hoy yo asistí mi clase aquí en Minneapolis en línea y la maestra dice que es posible las clases va resumen en cara a cara
Ajá.
en la escuela. Y si pasó, yo no
No vas a volver
voy.
en persona.
No.
Depende mucho que ver, Sally. Lo que estoy viendo, si hay aire abierto o hay ventilación muy buena, hay grupos pequeños y que hay distancia entre los alumnos y si todo el mundo está usando máscara, debería de estar más o menos seguro de lo que estoy viendo. Yo estaba ofreciendo dar clases en un parque aquí,
Oh.
pero nadie, al empezar, es muy raro como la gente es muy rara hoy en día, porque todo el mundo quejando de estar en línea con las clases. Bueno, digo yo, entonces hay una posibilidad porque hay un parque muy cerca de mi casa, es como un anfiteatro en donde
Sí.
hay un techo muy grande, podemos poner un par de mesas y sillas con distancia. Y ofrecí esto a los alumnos que estaban quejando de las clases en línea. Y entonces empezaron a pensarlo y llegaron a la conclusión que si nos juntamos en persona en el parque, ¿qué pasa si una persona se enferma? Y no, mejor seguimos en línea, David.
Sí,
pero,
sí.
pero es que ustedes están quejando de la situación y le doy es que yo soy una persona que no me gusta pensar en cosas que no son posibles. Yo soy muy optimista, pero muy realista también. Y en
Sí.
ciertos aspectos es que no es posible dar las clases en persona. Entonces, ¿por qué no me gusta quejar? Porque quejar no resuelve nada. Me gusta buscar soluciones a los problemas.
Sí.
Pero hay muchas personas que simplemente les gusta quejar. Quejar y
Sí.
quejar y quejar. Ah, qué,
Sí. Sí.
qué cosa, qué
Sí.
cosa más rara que estamos viviendo, Sally.
Sí. Hay más y más información sobre las complicaciones de COVID-19
Sí,
después la persona no es enferma todavía.
¿cómo?
Hay muchas complicaciones
Sí,
de COVID-19
sí.
por meses y meses. y afecta el mente y corazón y todos el cuerpo.
Sí.
Todo el cuerpo.
Sí. Y desafortunadamente nuestro país no está reaccionando bien al virus, no está intentando resolverlo.
No.
Nuestro país, la forma es que estamos como viviendo todavía con la duda que existe o no existe. Mientras tanto, todo el mundo de lo que estoy viendo en Europa y Asia y muchos países están resolviendo y la vida se está volviendo a la normalidad. Pero aquí en Estados Unidos no queremos aceptar lo que está sucediendo.
No.
Y la gente es muy egoísta, no les importa la salud de los demás, quiere decir, no, es mi derecho de... Muy mal. Todo
Muy mal.
Pero bueno, yo estoy bien porque estoy más tranquilo y concentrándome en lo que yo puedo controlar, que es mi vida, mi familia. Estoy saliendo a las montañas más para caminar en las montañas y estar en el aire libre y comiendo sano y dando las clases lo mejor que puedo en línea. Y mientras que tenga alumnos, voy a seguir dando las clases.
Sí,
Pero,
acabo de recibo un texto de Angela. Hola, can you send me the link to the Zoom call? She can't find it.
Okay.
Excelente.
Let me see here. I can send it to her.
Okay.
Okay, I just sent that to her. Se lo mandé.
Sí. ¿Es un joven buena o buena joven? Angela es un bueno joven.
Sí, es. Bueno, con la palabra bueno se lo puede poner enfrente.
Ah, sí.
Es una buen joven.
Una buen joven.
Ahí se corta el final. Es una buen joven.
Buen joven.
O es una joven buena.
¿Es una joven buena o es un buen joven?
Una buen joven.
Una buen joven. Sí.
Bueno, Sally, ¿algo que deseas aprender hoy?
Lo siento.
Algo que deseas aprender hoy o quieres mejorar hoy. ¿Con qué le puedo ayudar hoy?
No tengo un tema específico. Pero para mí es más difícil entender cuando escucho. Yo he tenido ver Telemundo, especialmente las noticias.
Yo he estado viendo Telemundo.
Yo he estado viendo Telemundo, sí. Es útil porque yo creo la tema del noticias, por ejemplo, COVID-19. Y usualmente hay picturas,
Imágenes.
máquinas
imágenes.
Imaginas, sí.
Imágenes, sí. No se
Sí.
dice lecturas, se dice imágenes.
Imaginas.
Imágenes o fotos.
Sí. Y a veces la persona habla muy rápido,
Sí.
pero a veces yo entiendo.
No, seguro ahí lo que no me gusta de Telemundo es que hablan muy rápido y hay muchas cosas. Si no estás presente a la cultura, a las personas famosas y cosas así, va a ser difícil entender.
Sí, sí.
Para mí lo mejor, que ni importa el nivel de la persona, lo mejor que uno puede hacer es leer.
Sí.
Leer
Sí.
y leer y leer, porque...
Leer a voz, ¿es en voz alto? ¿En voz alto? ¿O just?
¿Se puede leer en voz alta también? Sí, claro. Hola, Ángela.
Hola, Ángela.
¿Cómo estás?
Bien, ¿y tú?
Más o menos.
¿Qué tiene
It's been a weird week and a half.
¿Sí?
Sí. ¿Cómo es tu stepfather?
Oh, shoot. Just a second. Thought I put my phone on vibrate. Sorry. Okay.
Padre de tu madre. ¿Cómo
Suegro.
está?
El suegro.
Oh,
Suegro.
same.
Oh,
¿Qué pasó?
Yeah. Today they had to actually drive all the way up to St. Louis, which is where they're going is the VA hospital, and it's like 45 minutes from here. And they had to clean out his port, and they have to set up an appointment so that way they can figure out on everything that goes in that is entailed with him starting dialysis.
oh yes.
So yeah. So my dad's gonna be taking dialysis. So
Oh, I'm sorry to
yeah.
hear that.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's one of the things, I guess, you know, when you get older and you've been in the military and done a bunch of crazy stuff. So
What is
Will
that?
he need to stay in the hospital, or will he just get instruction and be sent home?
No, they're just going to give him, they're going to set up a meeting that they will have to go for the next 2 weeks. They'll have to come up there every day and sit for like a couple of hours for some class. So my mom knows how to like help with all of that since they have to do it here at home instead of up at the hospital. And then he'll come home after that. So yep. So they're doing they said this is all new since they can't, he's not really needed to be in the hospital. They can actually try to do this from home, but they have to instruct my mom on how to do everything.
Oh yeah. Oh, stressful. It's very stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, just a little bit. So
yeah.
You know, whatever. But
Sorry to hear that.
yeah. So, you know, you just do what you can.
And I saw your message that you weren't feeling well earlier this week here either.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's like allergies and stuff. I've been kind of feeling yucky.
No,
But
fever?
No, just sinus drainage, and which is weird because I haven't had that since after I had no surgery and for a deviated septum, and for like a month or something, 2 months, I haven't had that, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden, like the allergies and stuff started kicking up this year, and so I'm like, great. But yeah, it's insane. But I'm feeling a little bit better, so.
Oh, good. You don't think it was something where you were vacationing?
No. It's just allergies.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I'm starting to feel a little bit better.
Good.
So, anyways.
And what are you studying in class right now, Angela?
What are we studying? We're going over
Estar.
The temporary version of to be. I'm trying to look at my notes because I was just practicing earlier. What else? The questions. Going over the questions again. Cuando, K, can, that kind of thing. So yeah. I always have problems with differentiating the can and the K sometimes. I forget it. I don't know why. I've always had issues with that. I don't know.
Yeah, they look similar, like the QUE, QUI, very similar looking words. So just practice.
Yeah. Plus, on top of it, just remembering how it's spelled is the hardest thing for me. You know, like I just wrote them down on my flashcards today. And so I was like, okay, I'll just have to, it'll be a thing of memorizing and stuff, you know. So like just writing out, it's kind of hard to see on here, but just like writing out the stuff, just trying to memorize how it's actually spelt and stuff, because I either forget the accent mark or I put like, if it's an IE, I put EI. So yeah, but
for me, accents, the accents are the hardest for me.
Yeah.
I don't have, I think there's a way that I can use my keyboard for Spanish, but I haven't figured that out.
There is, but it's really hard.
What kind of computer do you have?
I have an Asus.
So
Yes, it's a PC. It's not a laptop.
I don't know how to do it from a PC. It's complicated from a PC. You have to like look it up and install the European keyboard.
Okay.
There's different shortcuts, but I don't know. I use a Mac, so I can't really give you that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's super simple on a Mac.
Well, see, with mine, I got the HP Envy, and so it's supposed to be a little bit easier to switch between, you know, the English and the Spanish and whatever, because once you download it, then you'll see on your toolbar, it'll say ENG for English, but you should be able to switch to the Spanish, but I have such a hard time because when I try to do it, I haven't memorized my keyboard enough to where, like, because it's moved around, so like the enye is like on the P or something, and it's like really weird. So I have to pull up my on-screen keyboard just to type certain, you know, like the accent mark and stuff. It's really weird.
Yeah.
That's a very strange thing. Why there would be a difference between the way you do it on one computer versus another. On my Apple, it makes perfect sense. You hit the option button, and then you put the you hit the letter E, and that gives you the accent mark, and then you can put that on whatever letter you want to add it to.
Yeah.
Or you can just hold down the letter that you want to accent, and it'll like pop up with the
nice.
Oh, really?
That's cool.
like it's like makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I'm able to use the Alt key for the upside down question mark and the upside down exclamation point.
Oh, you know what? I should try that. I wonder if that'll work on mine.
Yeah, I think you can do a lot of things with that Alt button, but that's all I've bothered to figure out so far.
Strange.
For the most part, you know, the accent marks, they can make a difference. Certain words, it can change it from one word to another completely. But for the most part, I think it's kind of a trivial thing, you know, unless you're planning on, you know, writing an academic paper for the university, you're going to be understood. And like, honestly, native Spanish speakers are the worst about putting the right accent marks and the right spelling. I have a ton of friends from all over the world, and like when they write messages, when they send me text messages, and when they, like, it is so hard for me to understand because I learned how to read and write Spanish the right way. So they take it to the phonetic, like to the next level. And so like the B and the V produce the same sound, and I don't know what it is about it, but native Spanish speakers will reverse those letters like almost every single time, regardless of the whatever word it is. If it begins with a V, they'll put it with a B. If it begins with a B, they put it with a V.
Oh, geez.
They miss the accent marks. It's taken me quite a long
Oh,
time.
man.
And like still to this day, I get messages and I really have to like I'll have to close my eyes and sound it out loud to hear the
Oh,
way
no.
it sounds. And then I'm like, oh, I see.
This is what they're trying to
Which
say.
is really odd because spelling is so easy in Spanish.
Yeah, much easier than in English. What I wondered as we were starting to study subjunctive is how do native speakers learn subjunctive as kids? Or is that something that native speakers learn in school when they study Spanish?
Just like the way we learn our language, they learn it at home. By trial and error, by speaking with their parents. And the thing is, they're, you know, so when you're learning your first language system, there's a very when you're a young child, you're very intuitive because you don't have an established communication system yet. So little children are incredibly intuitive when it comes to learning language. They're looking for all these other cues around them. And they learn stuff just like that. Like my son is 4 and I'm just amazed by seeing how he picks stuff up that we're talking about because it's so intuitive. Like I've studied a lot of the science behind this. So when I see it happening, I'm like, wow, look at that. That's what I read in that book last week.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it's and you know, parents aren't sitting down with their kids and pulling out grammar books and saying, no, this is the subjunctive. Like native Spanish speakers I know don't even know what the subjunctive is. They use it the right way because that's how they learn how to talk.
But they don't know what it is.
They don't, but they don't necessarily study it. I've got a friend of mine that had a high school son. They're Cuban. He speaks Spanish perfectly. You know, because that's what they speak at home. They only speak Spanish at home. And he failed Spanish class.
What? Wow.
Because when they start hitting that academic Spanish, he speaks it 100% fluently, but when they start hitting you with the grammar rules, they don't know what just like us for English, you know, when we go into high school English class, I know plenty of people that failed high school English class and they speak English just fine. They can communicate, you know. I wouldn't want to see their text papers or anything like that. But everybody I know speaks English just fine. That doesn't mean they're going to go into an academic class
right, that's true.
and do well in it. You know, there's a huge difference between academic language and conversational language. Huge difference.
Wow.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so I remember that from when I was in college. I went to school in Florida, where you know probably half of my classmates were, you know, native Spanish, you know, Spanish speakers, natives from all over, Cuban, Venezuelan, Dominican, and the worst students were the native Spanish students. The worst students in all of my Spanish classes. They all took those classes thinking it was going to be an easy A for them.
Yeah.
And they did terrible.
Oh my goodness.
And it's because the way that Spanish is taught, that academics, it's not natural. Academic language is not a natural way of communicating. It's helpful for writing academic papers because it helps structure the language in a way that's easy to read. That's what an academic language system is. There's a big difference between, you know, the way people write in and read, and then the way people actually talk. You know, we don't talk the way that we write.
That's true.
And so the you know, the big challenge comes in. So like that's why, you know, the more and more I do this program and the way I do this approach, you know, the more I try to actually remove the academics from it, at least in the initial phases, because it's too confusing.
Yeah.
When you start hitting people with grammar rules, it's so confusing, and it demotivates people from getting out there and actually talking, which I think it's all about communicating, you know, getting people. and the ability to communicate. You
That's
made
what
a
I
mistake,
hate it.
so what? You know, oops.
Yeah.
You said something wrong. Guess what? I do it in English all the time. You know, because when you're just talking, you're not like processing the grammar rules. You're just letting it fall out of your mouth, you know?
Yeah.
I'm super, as a teacher, I'm very subconscious, you know, I'm very self-conscious about the way I talk, because I'm constantly like, I hear the way I say things and I'm like, oh, that's not right. But it's communication. That's what communication is.
Yeah.
That's what fluency is. Fluency is just directly from the Latin word fluere, which means to flow. It just means that you talk without thinking. You're fluent when you're just not thinking about what you're saying, which is a very odd concept, you know. But I'm not like, when I say that, like, as I'm talking, it means I'm not like, you know, connecting my brain to the, you know, grammar check as I'm talking. I don't care. I'm just letting it come out of my mouth.
You know what you're saying and whatever. Yeah.
I've got the idea here of what I want to say, but what actually comes out of my mouth is it just goes.
Well, it's probably like verbal memory, like muscle memory in a sport or something. It's kind of a verbal memory.
It is.
Yeah.
You create the you know, neural pathways in your brain that connects all this stuff together, you know, like it's like an engine firing or a computer system, or like, I think about the times, like, this wasn't at all part of my life, but you know, you sometimes see the movies where they're like doing, you know, historical movies of where they have the operators that are like taking phone calls, and they pull the cable out of the switchboard and put it into the other one, you know? And it's just like, sometimes you get the cable crossed, you put it into the wrong one. Because like your brain is firing and like creating all these pathways, and these connections get built in your brain. That's another thing, like the way the reason why I teach the way I teach is because it's more natural for forming those neuro pathways, where I break down a conversation and I teach you the language based off of a conversation, as opposed to teaching you the language based off of the grammar. Because when you're learning the grammar, that's not the right neuro pathways that you need for communicating. Those are, you know, we learn grammar, high school grammar and college grammar, so that we can write academic papers, so that we can get good grades in high school, so that we can ultimately get into the university. You know, the whole educational system, especially when it comes to learning a language, in some ways, especially for a language, is actually incredibly flawed. The purpose of teaching a class for college professors is typically to enable their students to read and write, so that they can get into a master's program. Like, that's the whole purpose of an undergraduate program, is so that you can then go into a graduate level program. And there's this really famous professor. I say he's famous because in my teaching world, that's like, nobody knows who he is, but he was the author of the Destinos program. Like, you know who I'm talking about? Like,
I think so.
I used that program when I was like in middle school, you know. It's one of the biggest ones, but his name's Professor Bill Van Patten. And I found a presentation he was giving a few years ago, where, you know, he's in the academic world at, I think he's in the University of Michigan. And he was given this lecture or presentation at some big language conference, you know, and he was talking precisely about this challenge about the disconnect, where he surveyed like hundreds of university professors about their language programs, why they were teaching, what their ultimate outcome, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, over 80% of them had, you know, they weren't concerned with teaching their students how to speak the language. They were concerned with preparing their students to get into a graduate level program. super duper academic
Wow.
Spanish, rules and grammar and theory, preparing people to go into a profession of teaching Spanish, not preparing them to speak Spanish.
Wow.
And then he
That makes
also
sense.
surveyed all these college students to find out why they were studying Spanish. And over 80% of them never had any intention of teaching Spanish or becoming a teacher, but rather they were looking to learn how to speak Spanish to be able to speak it, for their primary majors.
Yeah.
Like if they were business students, they wanted to do business in Spanish. If they were medical students, they wanted to be able to take care of patients in Spanish.
Right.
And they're two different things. They really are. Academic Spanish and conversational Spanish are not by any means the same thing.
It makes sense because, like, I can tell from when I was taking classes at my college that I could read very, very basic Spanish, but, anything other than that, I was just like, well,
And when
So,
you're reading, you're activating specific parts of your brain. When you're writing, you're activating a different part. When you're talking and listening and hearing, you're activating different, like there's all these different compartments in your brain.
Yeah.
And so conversational Spanish is activating multiple compartments at the same time, versus academic Spanish tends to isolate just one of the compartments of your brain at a time. And so that's why it again, scientifically, when you look at the neuroscience behind it, it's broken. It's not the right way, in my humble opinion, to go about it, and I'm a product of the academic program, because back, that was the way to do it back then, at least here in the United States. I got exposure to conversational programs by studying abroad, by going to Europe and by going to South America and studying in immersion conversation specific schools. But here in the United States, this is a very new concept that's just really starting to come out,
And isn't it more focused on children now in the United States, the immersion part? Or are there immersion programs for adults too?
If you can find a school district that's doing it, that's the other thing is so like there's two major areas that in the academic world that's becoming a focus of study. The traditional approach, the grammar theory-based approach, is the subject matter, versus the new way that I'm mostly fascinated with, the conversational approach, is called language acquisition. And they're trying to implement it, but they, from what I see, nobody's actually doing it the right, like the way that I do it, by because there's like, all I'm seeing is other programs that are just taking the academic approach and doing it with smaller groups. It's still an academic program. It's nice that they're doing it with smaller groups so students get more personalized attention, but it's still the same academic approach. It's not the language acquisition. For it to be true language acquisition, like, so in Europe, most Europeans, I don't know if it's most Europeans, but many Europeans speak 2, 3, 4 languages. And part of the approach is because they introduce children to it at a much younger age. It's much more common for children to start studying, like English, for example. Almost everybody starts studying English by the time they're in kindergarten. They're watching, and they do the more immersion style, just the pure conversation. They're not teaching grammar rules, they're just talking and letting the kids have fun with it and communicate with it, and by the time they get older, then they once they get through middle school, high school, college, they introduce the academic side of it. So there's one component of it, which is trying to get people involved at a much younger age, but it's also the program itself. It has to be the acquisition style, the conversation style, versus the academic style. The academic style only works until you've really gotten to a conversational point, you know, like if you think about for us, you know, when we
in English too.
When do we start studying grammar for English? You know, it's not until middle school.
I was going to say fourth or probably fifth, sixth, seventh, somewhere in there.
About fifth grade.
Right? But we talk up until that point.
Right.
Yeah.
We learn how to talk, and little kids, when they're surrounded by people that are speaking the right way, they don't need to study grammar because they just learn how to speak it the right way. Likewise, you know, that's where like, you know, the field of the dialect, the Ebonics or whatever you want to call it, you know, like there's a structure behind it. Like if you look at it, there is a structure. They like purposely say, you know, use the, you know, don't do the third person conjugations, and they, you know, it's just a broken down form of English, and it takes place with, you know, in communities with lower socioeconomic means because they're not exposed to the right way of speaking it. You know, when you grow up at home and your parents don't speak English the right way, you're not going to speak English the right way.
Right.
Like, so yeah, it's a combination of getting earlier exposure, but also getting exposure to the right type of program as well. And that's what I'm really trying to do with my program, you know. But it's hard to get people to understand the difference between these two. Like, you really have to sit down and have a lot of time to explore the differences between the two options. But there's a huge difference between it, you know. And so there's all these different ways to learn a language. You have to find something that works the right way for you. But
and it's possible, I would presume, to start with one method and then switch to another. So if you've been studying using the grammar structure or format, it's not like you have to throw all that out.
Yeah.
Yes and no. It depends. Again, it's really circumstantial. I've had a lot of people that have majored in Spanish or minored in Spanish come into my program and start with the very first level. Because they never learned how to speak it.
Wow.
They've never developed those neural pathways. They can read it perfectly. They can write it perfectly. They can take grammar tests and do great.
Because they know all the rules.
They cannot put it together in a conversation. They can't make their ears, their tongue, and their mouth and their eyes. You know, they can't make all those different compartments work together at the same time. They've been working in isolation for years, and every time somebody starts speaking, they freeze up.
Yeah.
They can freeze up and they go, like, I know what you're saying, and I should be able to answer you, but then the psychological impact comes in, and they freeze up and they get frustrated, and it's a very strange phenomenon that happens. But it's a very that's why less than 1% of Americans learn how to speak the language that they study.
Yeah.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
That makes sense.
That is astounding. But really, as you said, conversation is the ultimate test, because you have to listen to what the other person is saying to you and then process it and understand it, and then think about what the message you want to send and how to form the words in the right order to say that.
Yeah.
It's a very multifaceted experience.
Yeah, and that's, you know, for adults, it gets even harder because the longer you have, so like we all have one communication system very well established. So no matter what you do, you're going to ultimately result back to that to try and process the new language.
Yes.
And it's it is what it is. It's still possible, you know. You just have to work for it a little bit harder, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's like developing habits, you know. It's like a bad habit, smoking cigarettes, you know. The longer you smoke, the harder it is to quit. The longer you drink, the harder it is to quit. The longer you eat a certain way, the harder it is to get a better diet. You know, these are just bad habits.
Yeah. The longer negative, the harder it is to turn the switch and be positive.
In this situation, it's not like you've been speaking English your whole life. That's not a bad habit, but it's a habit nonetheless. And so as you're learning your new language, you're always going to result back to that initial habit.
Yeah.
You have to now form new habits with the new language. You have to create new pathways with the new language. And it's hard. It's not easy to do.
And also, like you said, we're speaking English, we don't think, oh, I need a preposition here, and then you choose from a bunch of prepositions. But that's what I find myself doing with Spanish, is which preposition is it now, or which adjective should I use, or whatever. Which question word.
Hey, I just realized I meant to tell you about this at the beginning of the class, and then we started talking. But I actually I was supposed to end this 7 minutes ago because somebody scheduled, I don't know how he did it, but somebody scheduled a class with me that was starting at 3:45. So I actually have to jump off. I don't know if when I jump off, we can still keep talking to each other, but feel free to do that.
Okay, we'll see if we can, Otherwise, we'll sign off and we can talk again, Angela.
Yeah, I can always just send you a message.
Talk to you on Friday, hopefully.
Okay, see.
Angela, I had just seen too, right when I started, that you had sent me a message that you wanted to talk to me about.
You're fine. But, it's just about something I had in regards to the online stuff, but I could take a picture of it and send it to you or something.
Okay, yeah. I'm teaching a lot right now. I'm teaching almost 8 hours a day, 7.5 hours a day. Pretty much Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And then Wednesdays I have to take care of everything else that I don't get to do when I'm teaching. So sometimes it's right now it's a little bit hard as I'm kind of balancing everything out. But I will get back to you eventually.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I just figured I'd send that so that way if you did get a chance, then
Sounds good.
So
all right, I'm gonna jump off, guys.
All right,
bye.
Ciao, ciao.